Hey everybody, welcome back. Yeah, we got another awesome day. Sean's coming to you live from Costco. Where are you at?
Dude, you're so breaking up. It's
Oh,
insane.
breaking up, really. Allow me to play with my my microphone here. Make sure all my settings are correct. Can you hear me at all?
Might be my Wi-Fi. Seb, is he
Yeah.
breaking up at your end?
Yes,
I am.
sir, he was.
Is it clearer now?
Yeah, you're good to
Are we
go
still
now.
good? Okay, we're good to go now. Okay, good. All this newfangled technology, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. So, Sean, I was saying,
super breaking up.
seriously, what is going on? I think it might be your headphones. Or Seb, am I breaking up still, or am I clear?
No, you're clear, and Sean, you're lagging quite a bit. So, whatever it is, what it is, boys.
No, I'll drop the Wi-Fi and I'll go to. Bear with me.
Raj, no worries. We are. Let me just make sure we're all good. Oh, Steve is saying.
I am now on cellular, so hopefully that's better.
Okay. Well, can you hear me now? Is it coming in clear for you? Good. Okay. So now that we've got the technical issues sorted out.
Sorry, boys.
I know it's all good. I just wanted to make sure that everybody remembers to like and subscribe on the channel, hit the notification bell, and we're good to go. Oh, look at that. Julie Kelly's watching. Hey, Julie. Nice to see you.
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
And yeah, we got Steve joining us. He'll be here shortly. And I just wanted to, first off, anybody got any thoughts? Anybody got anything off the top of their head that they want to get into beforehand?
Super quick because I'm in the Nelson Co-op right now. I'm probably getting some background noise from the AC. Are you hearing that?
Not so much the AC, but I'm hearing like chit chatter in the back.
Okay, well, I'm going to do my best to keep muting in between topics.
Raj, maybe I'll just keep you muted the whole time.
Here I go. I'm about to mute. Oh, no, I've got to say hi to our guest, so then I'll mute.
There
hey,
you go.
pal,
Hey,
how you
Steve,
doing?
how's it going?
Hey, gang. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine. All good.
Perfect.
We got another Patrick. Hey, good morning. Good to see you. So we're about to jump into a conversation here on a random topic that you know nothing about. But before that, can you give me like a little 10-second elevator pitch? Who you are, where you come from, what do you got, all that good stuff?
Yeah, my name is Steve. I'm posted right now in Regina with the RCMP. I do a lot of social media excerpts to spread the good news, to spread the cheer, and I think that fundamentally we have something in all of us that we want to expand, right? Who we are, what we do, our influence. So I'm just excited to be here. It's so good to chat with you guys. I haven't met any of you personally, but I feel like some of you I know. So often in the social media world, we get to know someone and then we meet them. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. That does happen quite often. And actually, it was Sean and I and even Seb and I, we'd been chatting for upwards of a year before we even actually linked up in person. It does happen pretty regularly. Okay. Well, does anybody, Seb or Sean, you got anything on the top of your head that you want to dive into before we fall into a topic? No?
Did you guys watch the fights this weekend?
Ooh, the
yes.
fights, I did not.
Just the last one.
Was it good? I didn't see it.
Yeah,
it was the last fight was amazing.
Okay. I'm going to go to the YouTube. Go ahead.
I was just referring to the upset with Valentina Shevchenko and the way her back was taken. What a beautiful fight that was. That was amazing. And it's nice to see her. It's nice to see her be challenged, you know, like because she is a killer but I think that poked her a little bit, you know, and now the fire is lit up and it'll be awesome to see her return.
She needed it. What happened is what she needed. We all needed it, by the way. She needed that extra little push. Well, she didn't, but that's what she's gotten. It's going to bring even more of the best out of her. So I think it's a great thing.
Yep,
I'm looking forward to watching it now. I'm going to probably hit the YouTubes later while I'm doing some construction. So let's just dive into a topic then, I guess. We'll, what do we got here? Let's just pick something. So you're in Saskatchewan, Steve, right? What part of Saskatchewan are you hanging out in?
In Regina.
Regina.
I've been all over. I like it. I'm from Toronto originally, and but I've been here for over 8 years now in the province. So that city boy that once lived no longer is around, because I went back to Toronto in 2018. I badged over to Toronto City Police for a year, thinking, "Hey, I'm going home. This is fantastic." But I was there for all of a week, and I realized that this no longer city boy is here in a mix of a jungle, and I didn't love it. And I miss being a Mountie. Also, there was just something about that sort of bothered me. I can't quite articulate exactly what, but so I came back. There's a lot of reasons why I did come back, and no one reason in and of itself would have caused me to do that. But I'm thankful the RCMP, took me back. And when I did, so I've been in the South, Central, and North districts. So even being here in Regina, I do like it, the amenities, but if I were to have an opportunity to live outside of a city, I would probably take it up, because comparatively, it's not Toronto. It's not, but it's nice to have the amenities. But at the same time, open space is also nice, and there's plenty of it here in the province.
Yeah, we just moved to Sherwood Park outside of Edmonton, so that I can specifically say that I don't live in Edmonton. Edmonton sucks. But you're right. It's nice to have the amenities, but it's also nice to be able to get out pretty fast.
Yeah.
My cousin actually is an RCMP officer in just outside of Prince Albert, up in northern Saskatchewan there.
Okay.
And he loves it out there. He's an old school country boy too, so he's just having a blast. So here's a question then. One thing that I've noticed within not only policing, but not just military, but policing, EMS, even fire, we tend to self-isolate, and we do it for a number of reasons, both good and bad. And I find that I think maybe it's more of a personality thing for like people that want to serve, but also at the same time want to step back. What are you guys' thoughts on the self-isolation of these types of jobs? What do you think? Or am I even on the ball?
I'll go.
Yeah,
I'll just throw in my 2 cents here, and it's ironic that this is the question, because Steve is the example that I had no idea he was going to be the guest today. But Steve and I were just chirping back and forth at each other on my Instagram Live just before I had to drive out to Nelson. And I don't think we've ever really chirped back and forth in the live chat before. But I feel like I kind of know Steve to some degree, not well, but I've been following what he's up to on social media. And I like it, man. And to self-isolation, the dual ironic part is that he is literally out there in the middle of Nowheresville at times. And I mean, it's Saskatchewan, man. And it's pretty rural and it's pretty isolated. And as I watch him do his thing, he's kind of isolated from the massive cities. And if he was self-isolated on top of that, man, that's double isolation. And so that's a whole different thing than if you're downtown TO feeling a little self-isolated. So I'm curious as to what Steve's thoughts are on the self-isolation. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting territory to tread into. So one of the things that I think we all need to recognize what strengthens and bolsters our characters and our desires and that need to be included with people. And I found a lot of that through these types of platforms, albeit a little superficial in as much as a screen to a screen. It's not person to, and nothing, in my opinion, can replace that person to person, that physical, hanging out. But there's been a lot. When I started Real Cops Real Life, it was when I was posted in northern Saskatchewan, where I did feel very isolated, both geographically, but even a little bit of. I was like an older fella in the detachment. I was the only one with a family at that post. I don't divulge in the wobbly puffs too much. So there's just at a different stage of life, and it's no better, no worse, just different. So I had to be careful to not kind of get myself into this corner of, you don't like me because of these reasons, or I perceive that you don't like this, And so the creative that I am wanted an outlet. And so this kind of, this outlet has actually, I feel, has helped me walk through some of that. And ironically, that's when Seb and I actually met. I use met in air quotes. And he was, and I don't say this because he's here. I would say this, and I've said this before, but he's been absolutely instrumental in me still being a part of the RCMP, because there was a time when I was not in a great place, and that isolation, I just felt like, well, maybe the best thing for me to do is just to get out of Dodge. Maybe the best thing for me to do is to pull the plug on all this and just resort back to whatever and to wherever. But so I found that if you can, for me, this has been a great platform, and I don't use that term as far as YouTube or Instagram, whatever platform, but just the connection that's been built through these platforms has been instrumental in keeping me level-headed and quite honestly still in the game.
Yeah. Seb, you got any thoughts on that?
Excuse me. You know me. I got to clear my throat before I drop something.
Every 10 or 15 seconds.
Of absolutely no consequence. So were you referring to us isolating as first responders, hanging out with people like-minded, or isolation, physical isolation? What were you exactly referring to? Because the beginning was a little bit, just unclear to me. So it's probably
I can clarify for sure. So my thought on this was the fact that a lot of times for first responders and military and stuff like that, we tend to enjoy self-isolation. Like we like to hunt, or we like to do jiu-jitsu, or do things that we are personally like. It separates us from our friends, or it separates us from our family, or we do things that will isolate ourselves for fun. But we also tend to do it negatively as well, and where you start to get into a bit of a rabbit hole, and you start to say, well, no one really understands my problem, so I don't talk to these people, and then I don't talk. But also the physical self-isolation of sometimes, man, I know guys that were posted in Shiloh, Manitoba, like that is isolated, right? There's the physical isolation, there's the emotional isolation, and then there's also the mechanism of isolation in order to separate us from the job, or from the family, or from whatever is bothering us as well. So that's what I was wondering about, if you saw it as, depending on where you were, physically isolated, or for yourself being in the city most of the time, like you could do that mentally and emotionally as well. So that's what I was going after.
Okay, got you, bud. For me, isolation came by way of a willful decision to go recharge the batteries, because I tend to soak a lot of energy, and it affects me, one way or another. I mean, if it's very positive, it boosts me up. If it's not, perhaps it sucks the life out of me a little bit. But one of the things that's consistently helped is for me to go connect with nature and recharge the batteries. And now what I'm starting to see is that when I actually connect with nature, if I go in an environment where there's a lot of powerful, and we call it powerful forces of nature. And I don't want this to sound like completely out there, but say, for example, if I go somewhere where there's like a heavy volume of running water, or like really strong, I feel like it actually helps me recharge the batteries even faster for whatever reason. And I have no idea. I have some incline, but I have no real, idea of why it actually works the way it does. All I do know is that it does work, so I'm doing it. As far as isolating from others on account of, I'm different and we're not cut from the same cloth, or they don't understand me, that's a victim mentality, and I never had that. So I absolutely don't do that. I never did that. In fact, I didn't hang out with cops very much on my time off at all. For me, it was having that balance. Like I work with cops and full time. And when I'm not, I'm with other folks that do other things, and we don't talk about shop. I used to run a bit of a dinner where we had a bunch of members coming in, and we would go for dinner, and we had a pot on the table. And if you spoke about shop, you paid the bill.
Oh.
That was the rule. You speak about shop, you pay the bill. And so if you're interested in mingling with other members, but talking about the other things and the other aspects of their lives that are making them who they are, and you truly want to learn about, other people's passions, those types of things, this is the place for you. But don't bring your, last week I did this and that and nobody cares, right? Like it was just a matter of, and don't get me wrong, like if somebody needed to speak about the job on account of, venting or getting something off their chest, or maybe speak about a critical incident they're involved in, definitely, I was all over that. But I'm talking about, as a rule of thumb, I try to ground myself in other things outside the world. And I spoke to this before, but we as first responders and even the military to a certain extent, we tend to go from cynicism to nihilism very quickly. But in the cynicism realm is professionally induced, of course, we tend to disconnect and we tend to to see the world in a very different light. And when you have your friends and when you're grounded in a reality that isn't your daily reality, you're able to actually realize that, hey man, there is a ton of good people out there, and what I'm seeing on the daily isn't a reflection of reality. So
Yeah.
those are kind of my thoughts on that.
Makes a lot of sense. Shaun, do you have anything else on this? Yeah.
I do, and I like it. So first things first, to Seb's latter point, which is, trying to minimize the shop talk. That's kind of what we try to do over here at the collective. We don't spend the first half hour talking about how many whatevers we've got or whatever we're just about to do that's related to our job. We're talking about deeper, more thoughtful subjects. So to Seb's point, we try to keep business out of the topic. The other thing is, and I'll just throw this out real quick because I don't want to have all this background noise going, is Seb had mentioned going out into nature and finding areas that are powerful, we'll call them, where there's a certain feeling to them. I had this little chat with someone not too long ago about how I've spent some of my life chasing the power centers in on the planet. I'll give you one example, Machu Picchu. I'll give you another example, the Giza pyramid. I'll give you another whatever examples. And so what does that even mean? What is a power center? Well, I don't know, but I'll tell you how I figured it out. I went and did it. I didn't read about it in a book and shake my head and think, that doesn't exist. That isn't real. That'll never work. That isn't a thing. The only way to find out is put your money where your mouth is and go stand in the pyramid and see what's up. And so I know it to be true. There's areas in the world that have power, but it doesn't mean that you got to jump on a plane and go hit it. You can jump in your boots and walk to it. And it's called standing next to a waterfall as an example. So nature is great, but plus nature, go find something that is going to be powerful in nature.
Yeah, that's a great point. The the powerful nature. The first thing when you said I like to sit beside or I like to go near powerful nature, I was like a waterfall. First thing, and because there's a feeling to it, and I think it has to do with a lot of like the physical nature of it in terms of the humidity rises and there's spray. There's like it's a sensory overload when you get kind of close to one, which I think lends to its power. But the real benefit is the fact that you can't just like, I'm at a waterfall, right? It takes you a while. You got to walk there, or you got to hike there, or you got to climb there, or you got to get to that place. And I think that's part of it that helps with the self-isolation portion of it, because you can isolate within yourself on the walk or on the trip and work through some stuff if you need to, or just enjoy the time or be present. But it doesn't require a whole bunch of people. It doesn't require 16 or 17 people following along with you. That's awesome when you can have it. But I think that's part of it, is that this is why I want to talk about it, because when we go somewhere on our own, or we go somewhere with a group, we can still isolate within ourselves in order to go to do that thing as a way to recharge the battery, as a way to enjoy it. But it can also lead to a very negative, as you said, when you go from cynicism to nihilism, and it can, like a flip of a coin some days, where it's just like, yeah, and the world is garbage. Right? Like, it just kind of falls apart. We got a comment here from Scanman. It's a defense mechanism. I always thought it was a personality trait and categorized myself as an introvert in a busy, extroverted line of work. Now I use moments spent alone or in isolation as a time to reset mentally. That's a great point. Do you think that it has to do with, like, there's obviously defense mechanism when you pull back in within yourself, but do you think it has to do with personality as well? You think it might be two pieces or two sides of the same coin? Steve, any thoughts on that?
I think that our makeup, we might find that power that we're talking about in different areas, in different ways, and through different scenes, if you will. Maybe not everyone gets that same pouring into from nature like some of us might. Maybe it's in the middle of something else. I don't know. But so I think we need to first recognize what is it that helps refuel our tank. Like, what is it that we can absorb some of that stuff so that we can not be as subset like a victim, so that we can and like Shaun said, it's not about jumping out of a plane. We got to figure out what our own path is that helps strengthen some of that. So I think the personality is just what it is that fills us up or fuels us up more so, because. But whatever that thing might be, I think it's just cognizant of all of us. We need to be cognizant of those things that do refuel us and go there. And so that way we're not trying to pour from an empty cup. So whatever that might look like for person A, it might be different than person B. But I think that no matter what it is, there's something that has to quiet down the externals. And once those things are quiet, then we can start to reflect and really pull those resources into our minds, heart, and souls, so that we can be better and better equipped to continue on in our journey.
Yeah, I like that. Seb or Shaun, you got anything to add?
Yeah, that's a great point, Steve. And resilience, which is essentially the elastic band that we pull on and returns to regular baseline, needs the recovery. It needs the recovery. So what happens with people like us and people in the first response world oftentimes are people, the go-getters, driven individuals that want to go back out, that want to do the thing. And very often we do it endlessly. Like we have FOMO as well, we're fear of missing out, and we just want to go back and go back and go back. But we need to really reset and take the time to recover in between the incidents, or in between the context that we're operating within. And so that's a really good point. You need to know what works for you, not what works for me. And you may have to experience with things. But one of the things that I would definitely suggest is for people to stop thinking that it has to be complicated. Like, it doesn't have to be complicated, and it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be, necessarily. It may be therapy, but maybe it isn't. Like, you have to try some things that may work for you. I know for me, if I reset whatever happened this week, if I reset on Sunday, I go to my mental health walk, which is precisely the reason why I started a mental health walk, to bring people with me to feel the same thing. Mm-hmm. On Sunday afternoon, say if I take the baseline on Sunday morning and I look at it again on Sunday afternoon, I'm a different human. It is absolutely, and I am actually a different human in terms of outlook, in terms of positivity, in terms of being ready to attack the week, those types of things. And then midweek, I will go out in nature again, connect with nature, reset, boom. And I come back at my exact same baseline, which is my Sunday afternoon baseline. And so it can be complicated, and it can be complex and convoluted. Most of the time it isn't. The problem is it needs to start preemptively. I've heard comments from people saying, I don't have any mental health issues, so therefore I really don't walk in nature or do things that, and I'm like, okay, would you wait to be sick before you start doing the things that you need to do to prevent the illness from occurring? So it's important that preemptively we already start front loading those things when we are well. Now's the time, not when the chaos hits. And so I'm a strong proponent of finding the mechanisms, whatever those are for you, to preemptively address your mental health before things compound.
Yeah, that's a great point. Shaun, you got anything?
I do. Just a couple of things. One is to the comment in respect to introvert or extrovert. I'm not saying let's be careful. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is this. It's okay to better understand yourself, and it's okay to establish it as a label. We'll call it loosely introvert. The challenge is once you get to know yourself and you give yourself that label, well, I'm an introvert and I need time because extroverts and blah, 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 and all of that good stuff. Though it may very well be true, what I've seen it kind of fall apart is when someone attaches that label to themselves with crazy glue. And they can't change because they feel that's all they are and that's all they can be. And they operate in a tiny little box called introvert box, and they will not step out of that box because they've identified themselves as an introvert. And it impacts the way they run their life because they feel I'm an introvert and introverts do this and I won't do that because I'm an introvert. Well, it's it can be a corrosive, slippery slope that at some point you find yourself mega introvert rather than just introvert. And so that's the thought that I'm throwing out there, to stay more open-minded in respect to introversion or extroversion. Second thing is talking about, Seb said, nature, challenge yourself, a little bit of adversity, all of these things. What I decided to do way back in the day was jump on a bike and start doing 24-hour solo mountain bike races. Why? Because I know myself. I like doing freaking hard things. And so in that freakiness, as I was doing that thing, I was also by myself in my head. No one's talking to you except you. And boy, oh boy, do you ever get to process a lot of stuff in the adversity of a solid 24 hours. It's way more effective than going to a ashram for a month in India. And it's way cheaper, by the way. And so find something that works for you, whatever that is. And that's the challenge, is to, rather than dabble all kinds of things all over the place, sit down, get to know yourself, understand how you're wired, what will stoke you, and then align yourself, that stoke, into something where you can think, where you can talk to yourself, where you can deeply consider the world around you while you're having fun.
Yeah. I love this. It's really it's be intentional with it. Be truly intentional with what it is you want to do. And and in order to figure that out, you got to be intentional in figuring out what you want to do. I just love it. We got another comment here. Steve, do you have anything else to add on that, or you ready to?
No, it's all good.
Okay. So we got another comment that says, my best sleep in a poly lean-to as a kid was always next to overflowing with my old man. I could see where that would be awesome. But it also goes to what you guys were saying, is that you have to know what you like. Because if I were to say to my wife, hey, we're going to go sleep in a lean-to beside a river, she would lose her mind. She'd be like, no, not going to happen. Because that's not her sense of what is a good time, right? That's not something that would refill her batteries. But for me, I'd be like, yeah, let's go. I'll bring my axe and we'll get a fire started.
Well, hang on a sec. Is there even a lean-to? Is there even a hammock that you could lay in? I mean, you're 9 feet tall.
Perhaps. I'm pretty sure Big Bird on Sesame Street had his own hammock. So, or I could build a nest. Hey, there you go. I'll build a nest. It'll be perfect. But yeah, so the reason I wanted to talk about it specifically, self-isolation, it's similar to what you were saying, Shaun, was the fact that when you self-isolate, you can also make those leaps, even if you're isolating for a beneficial purpose, or like going for a 24-hour mountain solo race, or maybe you want to go hike up Mount Fuji, or maybe you want to find something that's really hard and then go after it. And in that isolation, you got to deal with yourself. You know what I mean? Like that is one of the hardest parts if you've never done it before, if you've never been in that silence of yourself. What are some tips for people to manage that? Because it can go south very quickly. At least that's been my experience.
I hope it does.
Yeah.
I hope it goes south. Get your south on. Like every day that you're trying something, go full south. Blow it. Let it go sideways. That's called adversity. That's called life lessons. That's called figuring yourself out. Go do. And by the way, I don't want to get it twisted. Yeah, I like to do 24-hour solos. I like to do this. I like to do that, whatever. I like to do things that have maybe an exclamation mark behind them. But you know what else I also like to do? Things that don't have an exclamation mark, like go out in the bush, sit on a tree stump, and shut up. That's what I call meditation. And so it's not something that I'm naturally inclined to do, sitting and shutting up. But it's what I need, because that's also the challenge for me. Not just challenging things. They're easy. It's the things that aren't challenging, like I mean, I don't like just sitting and being quiet. It's hard. But that's adversity, baby, in a whole different way. And those are things that I also have to chase.
Yeah, that's a great point. Steve or Seb, you want to jump in on tips for dealing with yourself in those moments?
I gotta send a drone to Shaun's location to witness this quietness that he speaks of.
Right?
You'll need a lot of batteries.
Yeah.
I'm sure this isn't a thing. The drone goes there and you see him like this.
just rocking
He's
a little bit.
he's
Just like,
still
oh,
going.
gee.
I'm on my 17th live today. No, I agree. I agree with Shaun. I agree with Shaun 100%. For me, it's been something that was forced upon me when I was very, very young. I was very isolated always, and I was by myself all the time. And the conversations I had with myself since I was a very, very young boy were very extensive. They were very long and and they were two ways. It wasn't, just me telling myself certain things, but it was me listening to the things that myself was telling me also, and sometimes, and at times getting in arguments with myself and not talking for a bit and until we were ready again. And so it's just been a thing, and it is a very beneficial thing, because what we do in the hustle and bustle of life is to leave the things that are uncomfortable to address. And that's the best time to do it. And it is always uncomfortable, but growth comes from that, as we know. And so, yes, push yourself in that zone and think about the things you don't want to think about and address. And it's you'll be all the better for it.
Yeah. Steve, you got any points before I go on a little drive?
Yeah, I'm just going to read a lyric. It says, "Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping. And the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence."
Mm-hmm.
And that's, of course, Simon and Garfunkel's song, "The Sound of Silence." Listen, I don't care how good of a listener you are. If you have external noises that are created through your phone and family and friends and screens and work and working out and all of those things, the more prevalent they are, the quieter that inside voice that challenges, whether it's a 24-hour bike ride or whatever, that challenging voice that you need to listen to, it'll be overshadowed by all of those other sounds. So come to learn to know that sound of silence and be okay with it. And by the way, the sound of silence today that's needed, it's not a one and done kind of show. As we grow and evolve as people, as humans, we adapt. Hopefully we're progressing in life. It's like Seb was talking earlier. Listen, I don't wait to change the oil on my car until my engine seizes up. I want to change the oil on my vehicle before the engine seizes up. Mm-hmm. So appreciate the sound of silence and listen to that voice that's going to challenge you in new ways. That's all.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. One of the things that my psychologist and I first started working on was the all of the doubts and the things that were in the back of my head that were screaming at me in the silence, and it was getting used to that silence, just getting used to all the noises there and going, okay, yeah, whatever, and just letting it go. The challenge, I think, for some, is that they've never had to experience it, either young or like that. This is, as an adult, is now the first time in their life where the silence of being isolated is negative, if you know what I mean. Like it can be negative when you're young, but I find that, I guess maybe people realize that they feel like it's an ambush, even though it's not an ambush. Sean, I know it's not an ambush. I want to clarify that life is not an ambush, but I think that there are people who ignore it long enough. They ignore all those bad voices. They ignore dealing with all that thought up until all of a sudden that's all they can think about. Because if you don't actually deal with those noises in isolation, that's all you're going to hear. So my question is, for someone that feels like it's an ambush, how do we explain to them the benefit of sitting in those feelings and actually of dealing with those feelings rather than ignoring them? Yeah, Shaun?
Well, I'll say this, that I spoke about this not too long ago and actually used these words: go outside, sit on a tree stump, shut up. That's called meditation.
You said it a couple times.
I did. And so I think the main theme would be this, that it's our responsibility, the four of us, and everyone that we know who's kind of like us. It's our responsibility to start normalizing this stuff. Because I'd mentioned at the time that I was raised in the military to be super freaking busy in my head as well as my body. And so any split second that I had where I could have thought, you know what? I get to take a breath. That breath is filled with mission pre-planning, mission post-planning in the mission. It was constantly churning out work because that's the thing that needs to be done at the time. And through that pattern of churning, it then becomes a given, a constant, a normality. And then the society that's wrapped around us enforces the idea that if you're not being productive, what are you even doing? Are you even an active member of society? And so there's a little bit of a message being pushed out there that you've got to be churning even just out in society, never mind being an individual churning in your head. And so I just wanted, it's a dangerous thought construct if you feel like you've always got to be churning. Quite the contrary, you've got to find time to just shut up.
Yeah. Steve, thoughts?
Just I like it. It's a, we're human beings, and so often we like to really act like we're human doings, right? We just got to do. We got to do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, man, we just got to be. That's it. Just don't complicate it. Just be. And my encouragement to someone maybe listening who was like, well, I don't know. Okay, I can go sit on a stump, but I know like that's not gonna, is first of all, if you haven't done anything like this before and there's turmoil, there's something going on that feels off. One, I would say, well, how's that been working for you? And secondly, is like, you got to step outside of that, what's comfortable to you. And I started cold water therapy. I still don't know what I'm doing. All I know is I get in cold water. It sucks, but I start to feel a little bit better. The sciences and everything that's behind it, I don't know, all of it anyways. But how can I judge, or how can I think it's not going to work for me until I step into some cold water? So in the same way, if you don't try it, and especially if what you think you've been doing and you getting used to those voices and you just sort of, they become white noise. Try something that isn't been your everyday go-to pattern, and break the pattern and sit and just listen. And so if that means 30 seconds, keep your phone down, like turn the screen like down, so you don't see the light up, like get away from whatever that might mean. If it means going outside, just try for 30 seconds and make that 30 seconds a minute, just like I'm doing with that stupid cold water stuff. It's stupid because it sucks, but eventually you start to get used to it, and then you're gonna. I am completely convinced that you will find benefit.
Yeah, Seb, any thoughts?
Yeah, it's pretty much all been said, but take something into your mind that's turning around in there that you've been putting off. Anything, something small. It doesn't have to be something with catastrophic consequences, and something that you're deeply uncomfortable with. It could be something that you've just been procrastinating on because you just don't want to have that you just don't want to process that, and go do that with that thing, and see how you feel after. I can guarantee you, I have a friend, I'll make an analogy here. I have a friend who approached me a while back, and we were having conversations, and it got a little uncomfortable when I asked about sort of his financial situation. And it's something he had never spoken to anyone about, but it was creating an incredible amount of stress for him, an incredible amount. But he buried it in there and really wasn't addressing it. He was addressing the things that he thought he had to do to recover from the situation, but he was not addressing the root of the issue. And after his sort of introspection / eventual conversation, I haven't felt this good in however long that are the words that he used, right? And so I believe that for me to stand here and tell you that jiu-jitsu is good for you, that this is this, that this is that, yeah, it really won't matter if you don't take a chance and you try something. Try it, do it. And what happens with humans, which is very interesting, and sometimes it can be frustrating also, is that we will find reasons not to do certain things, and we'll actually justify ourselves not doing it on account of injuries or things, or all people train, in this way or that way, and they get injured, and so we give ourselves copping out of things on account of either things that have no substantive sort of that there's no evidence to support, so to speak, or that it's no more dangerous than anything else, but we're going to inflate the risk, we're going to spotlight the risk on account of justifying not doing it. That's when Shaun's little sort of sit on the stump and zip it comes into play, and then go ahead and address the things. Try something.
Yeah. It's just about beginning. Shaun, you got a point?
I do. Just wanted to wholeheartedly agree with both fellas, and specifically the wrap up that Seb just did on that point, because I think it's super important for all of us to recognize that we've all been in those moments, where the hard thing that needs to be done is not the thing that we want to do, but we freaking do it. And so we're no different than anyone else, except we have the conviction to step into the moment and do it, because we know that it works, because we know that that's good, because we know adversity is good for us, but not everybody understands that. And so to Seb's point, these kind of things that need to be done that aren't happening are because there's a lot of reasons in someone's mind that they can't do it. It's going to be too hard. It's going to be too long. It's going to be too expensive. It's going to be too whatever, ... The idea is this. Yeah, all of those things might be true, but you can hedge your bets by going and doing it only for 3 seconds. Now it's 5 seconds. Go do something for 10 seconds. And if it's too much, bail. The next day, do it for 11 seconds. And then bail. And over time, you'll be over a minute, and you'll be thinking like, what was the big deal? Maybe. But maybe you'll get to a point where you think, screw this, I'm out of here. All right, bounce on to the next thing. Go line up your next 3-second thing that you don't want to do, and go do it.
Mm-hmm. There's a really great anecdotal story. I have no idea how true this is, but I had heard this through another guy, and I've said it on the podcast before, but that there was a gentleman that was trying to get in shape, and his trainer told him to do one thing: go to the gym for 5 minutes every day. Go to the gym for 5 minutes, and that's it. And then once you're after a little while, it's like, okay, now stay for 15, and then you just stay for 15. And it's about building the habit of doing the thing rather than worrying about the thing. I just love that. Julie Kelly says, focus on being present and slowing the breathing in moments of adversity. This is a great point. And there's quite a bit of science behind it. But anybody want to jump on it? Anybody wanted to explain why that works? I know Shaun does.
Yeah, go ahead, Shaun. You take this, dude.
I can see the big smile. No, okay, Seb, it is. You're up. Everybody's waving it off. I don't want to do it. You're on, Seb. Explain why this works.
Well, there's a variety. Actually, you know what, Shaun? Are you going to get into parasympathetic and all this good stuff? Because if so, go ahead.
No, I wasn't going to go that deep. And so what I was going to say is Julia's right. We've both experienced it in moments of adversity out on 24-hour race courses. As an example, I've seen things go sideways for Julia at World Championships. And how does she manage that? Well, she manages it because she's got a humongous body of work called adversity. And so she's learned how to deal with it through the process of being present and understanding that no matter how sideways it goes, you're still going to breathe a second later. And so dial into the idea that you're not going to stop breathing. The adversity may not go away. You just got to get right with it. And getting right with it means being present in the moment, realizing that it's going to happen. Nothing is so catastrophic that you need to stop breathing or need to stop moving or need to stop thinking. You just move through the adversity, present in the moment.
Yeah, that's a great explanation there. Seb, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just jump on this. So, when stressors are introduced in our lives, we start going from our cerebral cortex to the amygdala, which is our monkey brain, and we're edging towards the monkey brain as the heat is cranked up, generally, unless we have some degree of inoculation or some perspective we can draw upon, or whatever the case may be. And as we're doing this, there's physiological consequences to this, right? Our heart rate is accelerating, our breathing is shallower. There's a variety of different defense mechanisms. The problem with humans is defense mechanisms is always good for us. And I've spoke to this at length before. You know, when you make a decision that perhaps would get you killed, but that was a primal decision, and your body did that automatically as an automated response. And so one of the ways to sort of lower, you know, your as you're approaching the amygdala with a monkey brain, where you're in full survival mode and you can make sense of nothing, you need to start logically overriding things. But the only way to do that is to be calm enough to do it. And so taking the time to be present, to be grounded, to breathe properly, lowers those levels, and you are now at a manageable level of stress. Whereas when you start hitting the unmanageable level of stress, you know, there is no winning there. Like this is all bad. And so yes, breathing it's actually life-saving, and I've done it. You know, if we've all done it, guys. I'm not suggesting I'm the only one that did it, but I was at the back, you know, at the back of a house after thinking to myself, when I take a step in that threshold, I am 100% dead. Like, there is no doubt in my mind that is going to happen. Like, that was the course of action, and my heart rate like climb up, and take the breath, do the things, and eventually, you know, even have the ability to take in the fact that, hey, this might happen, it might not. I acknowledge the wolf, but I'm not feeding it and I'm not starving it. I'm just letting it be, and then flow in and do the things that I needed to do, and I'm still here. But you know, it's life-saving is all I can say. Because if I went in, taking the step in with the attitude or with the physiological response that I had initially, I mean, I don't know if there would have been an external threat needed for something to go wrong. I probably would have messed up something serious enough.
Yeah, makes sense. The I actually I did it when we were on Pegasus jump, as we were flying up into the thing, and I was sitting there like, oh yeah, I can feel my heart rate racing. Okay. And I just sat there and breathed the whole way up, and then somehow still let go of a plane. It was crazy. Steve, any thoughts on?
Wait. Okay. You tried to get back in though. Right,
oh,
Shaun?
I did. I tried to fly back in, and it did not work.
His breathing actually speeded up in the air.
100%. It did. Everything sped up. That was a good time. But hey, you know what? I got a pretty cool nickname out of it, so I'm okay with it. Steve, any thoughts on breathing on in those moments?
No, I just think like it's a great point, and Julie, thanks for making it there. I just think that once you know you do it and you make a habit of it, it just becomes let's say easier and more natural. So then the next time something comes up, you know, you're going to have to think less and less about the active duty, if you will, to actually do that, and then all of a sudden you're just going to start noticing, hey, I'm doing that.
Yeah, it's what I'm trying to sort out for my boys as well. Shaun?
Real quick, because I know Julie, I've seen her in these moments of tough times where our breathing should be elevated because of the stress of the moment. And one of the things that we haven't mentioned is, irrespective of the person who's may or may not be struggling, if you're the right person standing next to them, you'll calm them down just by standing there, just by being competent, experienced, trustworthy, the man or the woman that's required in the moment to chill everyone out. We've all been around good operators who you step next to them and the world quietens down. The air feels a bit heavier. It's not quite a warm blanket around you, but it feels like things are good to go. And so finding those kind of people who are legit squared away can help you figure out how to become legit squared away, would be my point.
100%. There's a great thing that what we're really getting at here is that it's in your control, right? It is in your control. We got another comment. Winter Storm 427 says, acknowledge the wolf, but don't feed it. Powerful. That is a great point. Because if you starve it, bad things happen. If you feed it, bad things happen. The best thing you can do is just be like, yep, it's out there. Okay. And apparently, Blackbird says we could hear you sucking wind from the ground. So, yeah. I don't doubt it. I was breathing pretty hard. It was fun. We got a question here. from Tanya, what experience do you have with paradoxical intention? Oh, that's a good question. In these situations, coined by Frankel, example, I'm going to make myself as scared as possible. She said, P.S. This all sounds like radical acceptance. Love this. Any thoughts on that? Any experiences with paradoxical intention? Shaun?
Yeah, it's called my entire life.
You need a mic drop, man. I swear. Like, you could drop your phone. Okay. Seb or Steve, any ideas?
Yeah, it really depends. Tanya, by the way, shout out to this picture. I know you probably took it somehow, selfie style. Yeah, we, you know, yes, I'm the same way. I mean, for me, but it's important to understand and acknowledge that not everybody responds favorably to this. Like, not everybody does, and that's a fact. And it doesn't make them any less or any lesser humans than anybody else. That's somebody that has the ability to do that. It just makes them different. That's it. And so acknowledging the same way that somebody reacts very well to volume in training and physical training and others don't. They will get injured or whatever when other people can just stack it up nonstop. It just is. It's nothing other than that. And so for me, this works really, really well. I can, if I really sort of do things that are as scary as possible. And what was the second part? The second part?
Radical acceptance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, precisely. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, Tanya, I think what happens is it gives you a sense of control. And as sort of twisted as this sound, control is something that we really have not very much of. And if you are taking the decision to take something on that truly makes you feel uncomfortable and at the verge of death, either metaphorically or real, and you do it willfully and willingly, it actually gives you a sense of control over those circumstances. And that's actually, in a twisted way, very effective. And once you have that, it actually lowers your stress at the central nervous system later because you've been there. So now you have self-induced perspective. So you've actually created perspective within your own world by doing it yourself. Man, you don't need any external factors to do that. How incredible is that? And how amazingly powerful is it as a concept? So yeah, again, not for everybody. And if it isn't for you, perhaps you want to start in increments and start a lot lower and just, slowly increase that baseline. And eventually, things that used to be uncomfortable will be comfortable again. And then you start pushing again and again and again. And when you look back at destination B from A, you will realize that you've come a very long way.
Yeah, could agree more. Steve, any thoughts?
No, I just like the analogy of, what you do in Arena A and you put yourself and you control those decisions, ultimately is going to spill over in Arena B and then in Arena C. And so I think there's part of our makeup of who we are that may not recognize the specific thing or the specific arena that we're entering into, but we recognize the feelings and we recognize that breathing technique. Okay, here it is again. This is something, from cold water to jiu-jitsu. I mean, I'm a big guy. I know what I know through like the academy and some of the things that I've learned along the way when it comes to self-preservation, let's say. But stepping into the world of jiu-jitsu, I'm a complete newbie. I have no idea what I'm doing. I get tapped out all the time. I've learned a couple of things already, and that is my strength means for the most part a hill of beans when I'm in the mix with someone. And so so here's the point. The thing that I would rely on and I have relied on, and it even has been successful in my job, which is my size and strength. I am glad to see that I'm now in an arena where that stuff is not enough. That's not okay. That's not the go-to anymore. That I need to broaden what I'm doing. Because when I find myself in those situations in Arena A, it's going to spill over when I make those controlled decisions, those conscious decisions to go after something different, and it's hard, and I don't like it, and that learning curve sucks, but at the same time, I know the benefit. And so if you can find the thing that works for you, and then just understand that whatever that thing might be, it's it's the baseline of that environment in your own self that says, I've been uncomfortable before, albeit looks completely different than this particular thing. But the element of being uncomfortable, I mean, when we go to calls on the job, there's, you know, no two calls are the same, but the feelings inside and the principles, they're very much the same. So we have to rely on those things, not the specific thing, but the principle thing, I guess is what I'm getting at. So control, yeah. Like Joe Rogan says, he puts himself through hell when he works out so hard, because he believes that by putting himself through that stuff, it strengthens something else in him, that when he's faced with different adversity, it's going to be a familiar journey, I guess, or a familiar navigation through that situation.
Yeah, there's actually a really great scene. Have you guys seen the movie The Devil's Brigade? Like the old one from the 50s? No? You got to go watch it, Steve. It's awesome.
I will. The Devil's Brigade.
There's a scene in it where the American major is talking with the colonel, and the colonel finds a rattlesnake in his footlocker. And it's like, what are you doing with a rattlesnake in your footlocker? And he goes, well, I'm terrified of them, so I figured I'd put one in my footlocker. The colonel's like, what? He goes, well, yeah, I was terrified of heights, so I became a paratrooper, and I was terrified of snakes, so I put it in my footlocker. So because you're terrified of something doesn't mean that you just never do it. It means that you probably should engage it in some way.
Welcome to my life. I will say this, that to Steve's point, and it was in respect to Joe Rogan and how, you know, he goes mega hard, smashes out a super hard workout, etc. And that's, you know, that's awesome. We all should be doing that, but not just workouts. That's a singular thing. And what we're looking is not just the A, we're looking for the A to Z, the crossover across the entire spectrum of your life, your humanness. And so if a workout is hard, smash it. If the thing that you've never done before is hard, go smash it. Never jumped out of a plane, go smash it. That's our job, is to challenge our Steve. I can't believe that you worked your head wrong there. Do you realize you moved it from side to side this way when it was supposed? That's how the head works.
Yeah.
So go find the hard things. Go find the hard things, the new hard things.
Yeah. New hard
and
things.
do them.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you know, I'm a big guy too. I jumped out of a plane. I tried to fly back in. I still landed well. So like, that's the key part, right? I hit the ground. It was smooth. It looked cool at the time. We have a couple comments and then we'll wrap it up here. Blackbird says, absolutely, Seb. I've gone from being so nervous in pursuit of a challenge that I felt nauseous, even vomited. But then once it's completed and I've succeeded, it's an incredible endorphin rush. New limit set, 100%. Winter Storm says, if you can't put yourself through hell when training and controlled, then someone will put you through hell when it's not. That is a great point. And then Tanya jumps in with, love this. I made myself get through my fear of being submerged in water. Turns out that skill crossed over to fighting through BJJ strangulations. That's absolutely. This also works the other way. Every time you betray yourself by taking the easy route in one avenue, it crosses over to all the other aspects of your life 100%. That was a great one. Fantastic. Yeah, that's a mic drop if I ever heard one. We're going to get Tanya on here eventually. So be prepared. Prepare yourself, Tanya. I'm going to get you on here. And then Julie says, embrace the suck. That is 100% it. Any final thoughts before we shut her down? Steve, I'm going to put you on the fire. Anything burning before we close her up?
First, thanks so much for all this. This has been great dialogue. It stretches into new territory, even just the conversation. But you know, everyone wants that mountaintop experience. Everyone wants to be, well, look what happened here. Look at this mountaintop experience. But you know what? Growth happens in the valley, and we're all going to walk through valleys. And I don't care how high your mountain might be. I don't care what valley you've been in and for how long you've been there. The truth is, you've got to come back to you. You've got to come back to, okay, I recognize where I am. I recognize where I got to go. And I recognize that the things that I've been doing to get there maybe hasn't been working. So don't be afraid to step out into new territory. Don't be afraid into stepping out into something where it's scary. And just like Tanya said, like if you start to relinquish those and you start to pull back and you start to ignore that and keep quitting on that, well, then all of a sudden, that's what's going to become the easy path. You know, be like water, finds the path of least resistance. My encouragement is to step into those things that's going to help you climb in that mountain. Yeah, the mountaintops experience are good, but don't forsake the times in the valleys, because a lot of growth sometimes is missed when you're in the valley.
Yeah. Seb, any final thoughts?
No, I've spoken enough, bud.
Like the guy from The Mandalorian, I have spoken. Shaun, any final thoughts?
And like the Mandalorian says, this is the way. And I will build off that to Steve's point. The way towards the top of the mountain is broken down in two parts as I see it. The outcome, which is called the top of the mountain, where you learn next to nothing other than there's another mountain. Where all the growing, where all the learning, where all of the understandings in life is built, is when you put your boots on and get to the base of the mountain. Just getting to the base is where all the good stuff occurs. That's all the growth, and that's the non-sexy stuff. The top of the mountain is the sexy stuff, but when you get to the top, it's already been done. You were done as you were approaching the top. All the work is getting to the base of the mountain. So let's invert the outcomes and say that the outcome is this. You won if you got to the base of the mountain. The top of the mountain is just the view to the next mountain.
I love that. The top of the mountain is an eventuality once you started at the base. I love that. That's fantastic. Well, then again, great way to end the show. Thanks so much for joining us, Steve and Seb. Shaun, as always good chatting with you. Hopefully next time we won't be in a co-op. I just love poking at them. Yes, so hopefully tomorrow when you guys join us, you will have already done this, which is liking the channel, subscribing to it, hitting the notification bell. That way, you get a little notification every time we go live, which is every day. So we'll see y'all tomorrow. Hope you have learned, built, and grown today here on The Collective. Chimo.
Chimo.
Chimo.